Well, in the original Iron Man, he was set up to be War Machine. So Terrence Howard is a very popular actor. He's been in a lot of big things, but the one most people know him for is his role in Iron Man. He got replaced by Don Cheadle because Terrence said he was really unhappy that he wasn't making as much money as Robert Downey Jr. And there's so much to go in here. This is an onion with many layers. Terrence Howard also believes that he has discovered and created his own logic language, which he calls teriology. He has spent the better part of, I think, about 7 or 8 years, trying to mathematically prove that 1 times 1 equals 2, and that 0 doesn't exist. Didn't he say people watched Iron Man because of him? Yeah, he credits Iron Man's success to his role. Yeah, this is the 1 times 1 equals 2 guy. But I always knew about that shit, but I didn't know that wasn't the end of it. So I was reading some of the comments here and getting as much information. I'm going to show you the scam that he's trying to run right now in a minute. But I was reading so much about him and like going through this rabbit hole. And this is from one of his books, apparently. I haven't read the whole book, but I'm assuming it's an excerpt because it has to go with his idea that 0 isn't real. So, where is it? Here. I made that statement, there's no such thing as 0. He looked at me with a puzzled look upon his face, and the professor said, let's say you had an apple, and I had an apple, and you gave me your apple. How many apples do you have? I said, I have 2 apples. He said, you don't understand, you gave me your apple. I said, no, you don't understand. Actual, I'm 14 and this is deep shit. As long as you are still inside this universe, whatever you have, I have, because everything in this universe is connected to everything else. Even if you could take my apple and place it into an adjacent universe, I would still have 2 apples because as long as the universe is touching this universe, then everything in that universe is still connected to and influenced by every single atom in this universe. Therefore, my giving you my apple is paramount to me transferring my apple from my left to my right hand because all things are one. So using his own logic language here, he should have no right to be whining about not getting paid as much as Robert Downey Jr. because basically Robert Downey Jr.'s money is his money. That's the argument he makes here. The man is a walking contradiction of his own dog shit logic. Okay, but that was years ago. What? No, he still does this. What? Look, this is from 2 days ago.
Was there for 2 years until I saw that there was an inconsistency
with the math
there.
Yep.
And so I went out to explore
1 times 1 equals 2
of understanding how the universe works, and I was able to define the grand unified field equation they've been looking for and put it into geometry. And then with that geometry, I was able to
he's done it
on that. And what I'm saying is now we have invented a new form of flight that I would like to bring here to Uganda to replace the drones, to replace the helicopters, to replace the planes in which to build this. Now, this is the geometry of hydrogen.
Mm-hmm.
Of hydrogen.
Hydrogen.
This is the proton itself. So any bond that hydrogen can make, our linchpins are able to make. So we're talking about unlimited bonding, unlimited predictable
it's like an anime.
Structures, supersymmetry. And
so many buzzwords.
The linchpins are now able to behave as a swarm, as a colony that can defend a nation, that can harvest food, that can remove plastics from the ocean, that
can do anything, can fuck your own wife.
Uganda and the people of Uganda an opportunity without having to have our young men lose their lives.
All thanks to the hydrogen linchpin bonding geometry that he was able to discover. See, I don't know what you're talking about, but that was years ago. He still believes this and does this actively. This was 3 days ago at a conference, trying to sell them on a scam. And this was back when I first found him. He published a paper on 1 times 1 equals 2. And he posted it on Twitter to get laughed at. Oh, another really interesting thing. This one's more sad than interesting, honestly. Terrence Howard, when he was a child, witnessed his dad stab a guy to death at a mall during a Santa Claus showing. They called it the Santa line slaying. I had no idea, but I learned this yesterday. When Terrence Howard was a child, him and his father were in line to sit on Santa's lap, and his dad got into an altercation with another guy. I think his name was Jack Fitzpatrick. They started arguing. Jack Fitzpatrick eventually pushed Terrence Howard's dad against a wall. and then they got broken up, and then Terrence's dad got some sharp object. It's no one knows whether it was a knife or if someone gave him something or whatever, because there was apparently a story about how a bystander gave him a nail filer to fight back, and he took the sharp object and stabbed him a lot, and he died. And it's called the Santa line slaying. And Terrence Howard is so shameless that he went on Oprah's show and told a complete fabrication of the events that happened, so much so that Terrence Howard's own dad came out and basically just called him a lying clout chaser. Why would you stab someone who you just met? You make it sound like it was at Thanksgiving or something. They got into an argument, and apparently both parties were at fault. They both got rowdy, but Terrence Howard's dad took it much further than the other guy, clearly, and stabbed him to death. All over cutting in line during a Santa Claus event at a mall. Oh, this is also a really cool quote that people always give thanks for. If 1 times 1 equals 1, that means that 2 is of no value because 1 times itself has no effect. 1 times 1 equals 2 because the square root of 4 is 2. So what's the square root of 2? Should be 1. But we're told it's 2, and that cannot be. Fucking poetry, man. That's so deep. This man is traveling through dimensions with this advanced mathematics. That paragraph would fool 60% of Americans into thinking it's accurate. No, you're actually wrong. So, and I understand, like, Americans super dumb, and I've been on Twitter, so I think everyone's kind of fucking dumb to some level. But even Terryology, nobody besides Terry believes in. So Terrence Howard, like I said, has spent the better part of like 7 years trying to prove his logic language, 1 times 1 equals 2, 0 doesn't exist, all these things. And it's called Terryology. And I believe he even patented it. Nobody, not even his most brainwashed fans, believe in it. They still laugh at him for it, to this day. I really want to find the tweet, though, because in his own paper that he published to prove 1 times 1 equals 2, he put in an entire section of fan fiction about the sky people, the Anunnaki that once indoctrinated us into believing 1 times 1 equals 1, or something, whatever the fuck it was. I need to find that tweet. It was somewhere in these comments. So this is his paper on 1 times 1 equals 2. And in this section right here, he starts talking about the Anunnaki sky people in his own, like, actual published paper to try and debunk incorrect mathematics. Some call them the Anunnaki, the sky people, whomever they were that gave that naive generation some 6,000 years ago a multiplication table and a flat view of universal geometry. They gave that poor misguided people a false axiom upon which to build their world. A false axiom that would behave almost as a bumper for our infantile-like species. A tutor, as it were. A false axiom that would allow for a measure of growth and productivity for that civilization, but would inevitably lead to failure and its inevitable collapse. Unfortunately, the later generations would eventually come to inherit this once thriving Mediterranean metropolis that includes, and not so lucky, entire world. Now, for the last 5,000 or plus years, our ancestors enslaved our thinking with that dogma for generations upon generations, leading down to our great-grandparents, and who, in like manner, indoctrinated their children, who in turn would help the newly formed system called tradition to propagate this false truth to the rest of the world. This is a paper he published to try and prove 1 times 1 equals 2. And that is in the paper. Holy fuck, this guy is based. I'm a teriologist now. Hey, man. Nothing but respect to all the teriologists out there. He says that 0 doesn't exist. I know. I was just talking about that. He believes that 0 can't exist because all of our universes touch each other, so everything is 1. Which, again, this ties into the idea. If Terrence really believes that, why not just give away all of his money? Because it'd still be his money. He'd still have his money by his own logic. Just give it to everyone who commented on this Twitter post. Give it to the teriologists. 100% this is because of a bad acid trip. It's super possible, but I actually think it's probably rooted in something much sadder. Like I mentioned, he watched his dad murder a man in line for Santa Claus. Like, that's a traumatizing thing. I think from the get-go, this guy was just kind of fucked. Hashtag proof. Was that to me? It's a very well documented thing. Here, it's called the Santa line slang. Happened in 1971, I think. Yeah, 1971. Jack Fitzpatrick, and I believe his dad's name is Tyrone Howard. Yeah, Tyrone Howard. That's a cool origin story. Yeah, I don't know about cool necessarily, but it actually does sound like an origin story out of a comic book. And then he just recently made that statement in Uganda, which actually does sound like a supervillain giving away his plan about how he solved the universal, whatever, grand levitation equation or some shit, and how he's using hydrogen bonds for unlimited power, and it'll be a drone, it'll be a plane, it'll clean plastics from the ocean. Oh yeah, the hydrogen proton. Right. I like his math. I'm pretty sure this doubles my money. Well, it's not your money to begin with, it's Terrence's money. It's all of our money. Read the book on stream and convert the chat to Teriology. Well, the book isn't like... As I understand it, the book is shit like this, where he starts talking about the Anunnaki sky people, and then just throwing formulas all over the place, but getting all of the formulas wrong. Like, endlessly wrong. So it's not exactly like a book to be read. It's more of like a look into lunacy. Like, written out. Maybe Terry was right. Can you imagine? Imagine 50 years from now, it turns out all of our math was wrong, and they look at Terrence Howard as like a prophet. They look at him as like a genius that wasn't appreciated during his time for his work on 1 × 1 = 2 and 0 not being real. Just fucking imagine that universe. In 500 years, we'll have a Terrence statue outside the MIT building. Well, by then we'll already have mastered the the hydrogen proton technology. So we will have flying buildings by then. We won't even use statues. It'll be like hydrogen molds. I actually remember he went on... Was it Good Morning Today? Or it might have been The View. I think it was The View, to talk about teriology.
Go ahead. Okay.
Now, a couple years ago, I did an article for the Rolling Stones, and they said I was crazy because I was telling them that the square root of 2 was a rational number. This is the proof that the square root of 2 is a rational number.
Well, you went to Oxford to present.
Fuck, now I see it.
About the point where 4 bubbles meet equally and oppositely.
Can I touch it?
Yes, and it's where 12 planes meet. This is an undiscovered geometry that I'm now making known to the world here on this show.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah!
I know.
Well, when I was at Oxford,
I love that geometry.
they were so upset. Our entire world economy is based on 1 × 1 = 1. So if you can prove that an action times an action equals a reaction, which science proves, then 1 × 1 must equal more than 1. And to have the physical proof of it, that kind of shakes things up a bit.
Well, you're a shaker-upper.
Well, that's the Oxford.
Oh.
Thank you.
I guess they don't like
I think The View, and like maybe just talk shows in general, are one of the most detrimental things to the American household that we've ever had. Second only to like Twitter and shit, I would say. It just platforms absolute insanity. It's wild. Like, it's baffling. They don't even bother to even, like, ask the most general questions like, well, how? Can you prove it? Are you sure? Really? They're just constantly sucking dick all the time for whatever guest they bring on. Blows my mind.
So here's my question for you, because we were talking about immigration before on the panel, and
What?
I'm a child of Italian-American grandparents who were, my mother was born here.
Okay, well, I guess we're done with teriology. They steered that topic away real quick. Tony Stark himself taught Terry that 1 × 1 = 2. Yeah, he should really credit Tony Stark somewhere in this paper, but I don't think he does. No respect. It's just such a fascinating rabbit hole. I implore anyone who likes wild, wacky shit to look into teriology. I do believe it is patented. Let me double check. People are more gullible now than they ever have been in the history of this species. That is just a fact. People are throwing away any level of thinking and rationality just to believe in the most outlandish garbage imaginable and just falling victim to every scam you could ever possibly drum up. 3 days ago, the stupid man's genius, Terrence Howard, went on Joe Rogan's podcast, and Joe Rogan only piped up for 13 minutes out of this 3-hour Arkham Asylum debriefing. That's 13 minutes worth of speaking from Rogan here. The rest was Terrence Howard brainwashing idiots into thinking that he's some kind of enlightened genius. For almost a decade now, Terrence Howard has gone on this international mission to convince the world that teriology is the future. That's what he calls his logic language. Teriology. Let that just marinate in your noodles up here for a second. You're believing in a guy who's fucking preaching about teriology. So, there already exists so many people that have broken down everything Terrence Howard is wrong about in the teriology logic language system. I'm just going to focus on his biggest one. 1 times 1 equals 2. That is something that he has built his entire fucking identity around when it comes to his math. And for the first 9 years of this one-man traveling circus, everyone laughed at him because it's so outrageous. If we followed teriology, cars, phones, planes, medicine, literally everything that is keeping you alive right now would not exist because his logic language is fundamentally wrong. It's not up for interpretation. He is provably wrong in every possible measurement. And I want to dive into this deeply because so many people are thinking that he is correct. They are throating his cock and balls, literally slobbering all over his meat because he went on Rogan and used words they didn't understand. So since they didn't understand the words, they took it as a sign that this guy's the fucking chosen one when it comes to math. I'm not even mad at Terrence Howard. I want to make that clear. I'm mad that a lot of people think Terrence Howard is right. I'm more mad at the gullibility of people to just take this at face value without doing any level of thinking for themselves. It's so easy now for people to just throw away their own thoughts and just let people tell them what they should believe in. They're like, yep, that sounds right. I want to believe in that, so I will. It's so fucking frustrating because that sets us so far back. Now, before I even dive deep into this rabbit hole, I want to tackle his biggest one that he has always put on the boxing gloves and fought for the honor of, which is 1 times 1 equaling 2. He even made his own YouTube video here explaining how 1 times 1 equals 2, and admittedly, if you set aside everything that he's wrong about, he's still fucking wrong. He doesn't even come close to accidentally tickling something correct. He is fishing around in the dark looking for a urinal to piss on, but he keeps pissing on the floor because he can't find it. He doesn't decide to just turn the lights on. He wants to live in this absolute, void of logic. I am going to demonstrate why 1 times 1 can never equal 2. A 3rd grader could do this, and I'm going to break it down in a way that no matter how stupid you are, and no matter how much you want to believe in this concept, it can't work. In no dimension in the multiverse could this ever be a real possibility. So when you're saying times, when you're using multiplication here, you're talking about the groups of something. So one group of 1 is 1, but let's get more physical with it. And I'm going to do it using a physical object here. We're going to get real, kinetic with it. And I'm going to use the GamerSupps Moist Waifu Cup. So this is me on the cup, big titty anime girl. It's available at gamersupps.gg. I'll put a link to it in the description. It's available for the next 2 weeks. This just seemed like a natural segue into mentioning that while I demonstrate this. Now let's put this concept into practice in a real-world scenario. You catch me at the grocery store, you say, "Pardon me, Charles, looking extraordinarily breedable as ever today. I have this box of moist GamerSupps waifu cups. Come take a peek." And I march on over and I say, "By Jove, look at that. There is a single moist waifu shaker cup in that box. There is one box with one moist GamerSupps cup in it. One box with one cup. I pick that up. I would have one shaker cup. 1 times 1 equals 1. That's just how it works. There's not any scenario where all of a sudden this waifu shaker cup is going to start budding like it's fucking SpongeBob and I'll end up with 2 somehow. That's not how it works. I have one box that has one cup in it. You come up to me again, this time it's at a Sam Ash music store, I'm fucking blowing away at a trumpet. You say, "Charles, check out these moist GamerSupps waifu shaker cups I have in these boxes." I say, "Oh, how many cups are per box?" You say, "There's 2 waifu shaker cups in these boxes," and I have 2 boxes. 2 boxes of 2 waifu shaker cups, that's 4 total waifu shaker cups. 2 times 2. It's Like, this shouldn't be a hard thing for people to grasp. These aren't hard to understand, but when you have someone like Terrence Howard preaching just completely incorrect things, it's able to mislead people who want to believe in something different, that want to have this big paradigm shift in mathematics, which I don't really get. Why do you want mathematics to change? The only reason you're alive right now is because of that. You would have likely already been mauled by a bear, died from an infection, died from dysentery, wouldn't have made it past the Oregon Trail, like way before you even made it to whatever your current age is, if we didn't have math. We wouldn't be where we are today. You wouldn't be watching this. You would likely be out there hunting and gathering and probably dying in the process. There is nothing that changes about this kind of concept when it comes to math. Now, it's important to note, I'm not a mathematician. That's something Terrence Howard and I have in common. But I think if I was a mathematician, most of you would trust me less. You'd think I'd been indoctrinated by big math or something to keep the genius revolutionaries like Terrence Howard down when it comes to these innovative concepts of new math. No, an actual child could prove why 1 times 1 will always equal 1, and never 2. It doesn't take a genius to prove that Terrence Howard is wrong. It takes an ordinary person using their own brain a little bit, and Terrence Howard is hoping that you're not one of those people that think for themselves. For some reason, we've entered the age where people don't trust experts anymore. The individuals that have dedicated their lives to a certain subject like math now have the most scrutiny from the average ordinary person, thinking that they're wrong and evil. There must be like a puppet master behind the scenes controlling the experts. Instead, the average person would rather put their faith in someone that has never studied math and never done anything properly in the subject that they're preaching about, like Terrence Howard. He has dedicated his life to being wrong. Meanwhile, the experts that just get fucking torched by people that don't understand math have an entire history of inventions to show for it that these people are literally using to criticize them. These inventions that they take for granted is the product of that math, not Terrence Howard's teriology math. If teriology was the correct mathematics, where are those drones that he was talking about for Uganda? Where is all of the potential huge breakthroughs using teriology? Where are those inventions? Now, over a year ago, I did make a video on Terrence Howard going over some of his more ridiculous and embarrassing moments. I'm not going to really harp on those here because a lot of people went from Joe Rogan to that video and said that I was just attacking him on like a personal level or something, which I really wasn't. I was just explaining why a lot of this is so silly and I was making fun of it, as everyone used to do back when we used to think for ourselves instead of just be spoon-fed all of our opinions. So, what I did talk about in that video is something I'm going to briefly mention though. He tried to scam all of Uganda by promising them these drones that literally just don't work. I'm just going to play you a clip from that again to remind you that Terrence Howard uses this math in pretty nefarious ways from time to time, like in the case with Uganda drones from the hydrogen proton geometry.
Was there for 2 years until I saw that there was an inconsistency with the math there. And so I went out to explore a new way of understanding how the universe works, and I was able to define the grand unified field equation they've been looking for and put it into geometry.
Once again, just a friendly reminder, there is nothing more consistent than 1 times 1 equals 1. To represent it one more time, I have one box with one waifu cup in it. 1 times 1. The total waifu cups is 1. One box has one of these in there. There is one of these in total.
And then with that geometry, I was able to put props on that. And what I'm saying is now we have invented a new form of flight that I would like to bring here to Uganda to replace the drones, to replace the helicopters, to replace the planes. Now, this is the geometry of hydrogen. Of hydrogen.
Hydrogen.
This is the proton itself. So any bond that hydrogen can make, our linchpins are able to make.
It's been 2 years since this, and it doesn't seem like Uganda's any closer to having those Terrence Howard promised hydrogen proton geometry new flight machines that reinvent flight as we know it. But maybe it's just a project that takes a long time. Maybe he's at Area 51 right now cooking that shit up with the aliens. Who's to say? There's just no updates on it. So I'm excited to see Terrence Howard's update on these hydrogen proton geometry flying machines. But let's be fair here. Let's take a peek at both sides. Terrence Howard actually did publish something trying to prove that 1 × 1 = 2 and that the world of science and math is wrong. You can read through the whole paper yourself if you'd like, and hopefully you'd come to the obvious conclusion that he is still incorrect in everything that he's breaking down here. He's using all these incredible leaps in logic to get to his conclusion. What I want to highlight, though, is in his own paper here, he has a whole section dedicated to the Anunnaki Sky People. Some call them the Anunnaki, the Sky People, whoever they were that gave naive generations some 6,000 years ago a multiplication table and a flat view of universal geometry. They gave that poor, misguided people a false axiom upon which to build their world. In a paper that's supposed to all be about logic and math, where the fuck did the Anunnaki Sky People come from here like a jump scare? What in the world? That should immediately trigger your bullshit alarms. That is unhinged to include in this. Like, it showcases that he fundamentally doesn't even understand where math comes from in the first place. He makes it seem like math is something that was given to us. Math is not an invention. Math is a discovery. It's something we learned. It's not something that we created based upon an Anunnaki Sky People gift. A ruse from the Anunnaki. Also, I love how he can just slide in whatever nonsense he wants without any type of citation or proof behind it. Oh yeah, this is all based upon what the Anunnaki gave us 6,000 years ago. Well, trust me, I know. I was there, actually. I saw it. Terrence Howard, I'm immortal. I saw it. I was actually there during the trade of the Anunnaki geometry and the naive generation 6,000 years ago. That's how. That's my proof. That's my evidence. Like, people just take what he says and just run with it. Like, oh, that's great. And like, they ignore it. Like, on Joe Rogan, he had a whole section dedicated to how he can remember his birth.
I was inside my mother's womb. And I was about maybe 6 months inside the womb. And I'm like, okay, don't forget I'm here. Okay. Don't forget. You go to sleep. You wake up again. Now something's moving in front of you. And you're like, oh, that's my friend. But I had a different name for it. I didn't know it was my hand. But I knew I had a title for it. Go back to sleep, all of those things. Then ultimately you get ready to come out. I remember all of that.
You remember coming out?
Remember being compressed.
That is legitimately not possible. There were some doctors that weighed in on this because a lot of people were like, this is incredible. He truly is like this super genius. He even remembers being in his mom's womb. You can't. You actually can't. You don't even start storing memories in your brain at those stages because it is still developing. So they're not fully developed. Thus, those parts that are responsible for memory storage and memory retrieval aren't there yet. You can't. And you certainly wouldn't be able to recall them. Now, a couple doctors did say that in very rare cases, you can recall some feelings, which is why if you had like a traumatic birth, that could play a role in your life later on. Like, you do form memories as a baby, but due to infantile amnesia, you can't recall them. So the memories you're forming are things like your mother's face, shit like that. As a baby, you do form those memories. You can recall your mom's face, but as you grow up, you are never going to remember those moments. You can't. Except in like extraordinarily rare cases, which don't have a ton of documentation surrounding or proof around, but there are a couple of cases where people do claim that they can. But in Terrence Howard's case, not even those extraordinary circumstances go as far as him, where he's remembering in the womb and saying to himself, don't forget, and then giving a name to his hand. That's just ridiculous. And then he says that the proof of this on Rogan is that when his wife was pregnant, he'd shine a light on her belly and then play music. And he did that for like a week, and then he stopped shining that light and playing the music, and then the baby's hand pushed on his mother's stomach. That was his proof that Terrence Howard remembered everything in his mom's womb. Once again, a complete misunderstanding of the things that he's fucking talking about with it. And there were a lot of people that said like, oh, that was a really weird section, but he was right about everything else. Why are we ignoring things like that? That is not something you should ignore. That is very clearly a red flag in the logic and the person behind the logic. It's ridiculous. Like, they're like, oh, no, he was definitely weird about the whole remembering being in the womb nonsense. But he was totally right about gravity not being real. Like, disproving gravity, he fucking nailed. And 1 × 1 = 2, absolutely on the money with it. Been saying it for years. It's so ridiculous. People just want to believe in the most like, I don't even know the right word for it. The most over-the-top special ideas just to feel like they're smarter than everyone else. At least that's the impression I get. Because there is no way you would ever logically reach these conclusions unless you just wanted to believe Terrence Howard because it's fun and it makes you feel special. That's the only way. Because if you ever try and employ any of these in the real world, they fall on their fucking face. Again, 1 times 1 never equals 2. So if you ever try and use any of the teriology in your day-to-day life, it's not going to work. You're going to be left high and dry with your dick in your hand. It's not going to function. It can't. It doesn't. And for some reason, we are now in this age where people are just like, it doesn't matter. He's probably still right. Like, what the fuck? It's so stupid and frustrating. It really is. Like, again, I'm not even mad at Terrence Howard. Like, it's not a crime to be dumb. And it's not wrong to, like, pursue things outside of the already established, mainstream belief system. I think that's extremely important to a healthy society, always challenging the things that you're given. But this is the exact opposite. People aren't challenging what Terrence Howard is feeding them. They're just accepting it with a fucking smile on their face and not asking any questions. Terrence Howard pursuing this is not the biggest deal in the world to me. In fact, I do think in a lot of cases that can be really helpful. If someone goes out and challenges like some really well-established theories or whatever, like, let's see. It's always important. But he has come back with incorrect conclusions and still preaches about how everyone else is wrong, without ever demonstrating why he's right. He has nothing to show for his teriology. No creations, no inventions, nothing. So it should immediately right there stop for him and be like, okay, you know what? This was, a fruitless endeavor. I didn't get anything out of this. Maybe the math that we have is correct and is consistent because look at all we have to show for it. Look at all of this around us. We're surrounded by the product of mathematic breakthroughs. And Terrence Howard's math has nothing like that. So it should have come back like, okay, it was worth a try, didn't happen, we move on. And then he could have gone into different avenues to pursue more knowledge or more discoveries, but he hasn't. He has locked himself down to something that is completely false, and he's taking as many people with him as he can. And I think that shit sucks. People need to stop just taking in other people's perspectives as their own and start actually just thinking for themselves and putting into practice the things that they're being told to see if they make sense and if they're right. That's it. I mean, that's really about it. I'm not going to keep droning on about this. It's just so fucking frustrating. That's it. See ya. You got to watch the Neil deGrasse Tyson response to Terrence Howard.
So this is Terrence Howard attempting to reinvent mathematics and physics. A little backstory.
Successfully, too, by the way.
I took initial interest in Terrence.
Let's see what the comments are saying now. Because when this initially came out, all the comments were like, man, Terrence Howard is a fucking genius. Man, Terrence Howard really gets it. I didn't realize he was so intelligent. Meanwhile, he's actually just talking about gobbledygook. 1 times 1 equals 2. I've reinvented sacred geometry with a hydrogen proton. Selling drones to Uganda based on the hydrogen proton geometry, which the drones don't exist. Okay. Now the comments have flipped. They turned on him. I still remember the day, well actually the 3 or 4 days after this episode came out, people were like, man, Terrence Howard is so fucking smart, look at what he said and look at what he did. And all the comments were on his side and shit about like, damn, so deep. I knew we couldn't trust math. But Charlie, he invented virtual reality, check out his patent. Oh, I know. Not only did he invent virtual reality, he invented the very fucking dimension in which we inhabit while he was still in his mother's womb. Did you know he has memories from the womb? I know. He's just built so different. Would you debate Terrence Howard on his math? Sure. I feel like anyone would be more than willing to. But I also feel like if someone's going to debate Terrence Howard, it shouldn't be me. Because that would immediately bring Terrence Howard, that was supposed to be the guy reinventing math, down to the level of just a fucking goober streamer content creator. That's who I'll debate. That guy. I'll display my math prowess against that guy. No, not actual mathematicians, please, God, no. But I'd be more than willing to. It is completely indefensible with 1 times 1 equals 2. The only way he gets away with that is by spamming buzzwords that actual Neanderthals think mean something. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, no matter what, you can never show that 1 times 1 equals 2. But you can always show that 1 times 1 equals 1. It's the easiest demonstration ever. And the only way Terrence Howard weasels his way out of it every time is just with nonsense quantum buzzwords. If you debated him, you should just out-buzzword him. Oh, I'd be dropping so many buzzwords on him just to, like, throw him in, like, some kind of fucking stun lock. Mr. Howard, please stop bloviating. It's like you haven't even considered the Bose-Einstein paradox. As, of course, you know this is elementary. And he'd be like, Bose-Einstein? Higgs boson? Action Bronson believes in Terrence Howard. Oh my god. Wait, is it a joke?
What in the actual fuck?
First of all,
I understand it though.
I kind of
I
understand,
understand it. I understand.
I mean, it made sense.
To me, he's
He's making
making me
sense.
believe.
He's way too smart to just be making everything up. Like, there's no way he just make.
This fucking genius. You can't just make up 1 × 1 = 2. That's... That... You can't do it. That's... inconceivable.
He's a lunatic. Like I've
You
heard
can't
people
just
say,
lie. You can't
he's
just come up on
lunatic,
that. You
he's
can't
making
just-
things. I'm like, I don't think that's correct. He knows too much. So is
I like how Joe Rogan immediately believes that Terrence Howard remembers being in his mother's womb and waving at his hand. He named his hand in his mom's womb before he had any concept of words or anything. In pitch darkness, he named his fucking hand and called it his friend in his mom's womb. He knows so much.
Terrence Howard has to sit down with someone who's an academic, someone who's got a PhD,
Like
in
Joe
whatever
Rogan or
discipline
Action
they're talking
Bronson.
about. And they can have a discussion, and you can see what he really knows and just what he can say to me, right? To me, it all makes sense, but I'm a moron.
No, you're
True-
not.
But
You're
now
not.
you're talking to a
super true.
mathematician, or if you're
Super
talking to a
true.
physicist, someone who actually can understand what these computations mean and what he's trying to say about 1 +
Oh, you're
1
asking hard
or 1
questions,
multiplied
OMG.
by 1
That's
can't be
multiplication
Like,
now.
one.
no
It's scary.
mathematics.
Yeah.
Everything is bullshit. I believe that.
Brother, what you're talking into is the result of mathematics, Action Bronson. It's all bullshit. Math's not real.
Was I wasn't good in algebra.
No shit.
I see it more in a linear way, not a linear way, a different way than him, like more similarly to him.
Right. Well, I would imagine
Wrong,
that
then.
there's probably more to all these things.
Those fucking
Even our
toys he made, the
mathematics.
figures.
Even our mathematics, like, as brilliant as the people are.
I've never actually listened to Action Bronson speak or anything. Is this guy just actually a fucking imbecile? Or is this a joke? Is he playing a character? I'm getting half chat saying he's trolling and the other half are saying no, he's actually just really fucking dumb. I just don't know enough about Action Bronson as a person.
Yeah, he's a great actor, but it's just because he's so smart. And then he's talking about how the periodic table's all fucked up, and this is what you're like. Wait a minute. What are you doing? How can you do this?
I understand.
How can you do this? Joe Rogan, I'll do it right now. Periodic table's wrong. I did it. That's how he does it. That's a secret. That's how. This is unbelievable. I don't know enough about Action Bronson to know whether or not he's being genuine here or if he's just playing, like, the buffoon. But Joe Rogan is so hook, line, and sinker on, like, the actual fucking stupid pill here. It's crazy. Or Terrence could be the greatest con man. To a certain extent, he's trying his best to scam Uganda with his hydrogen proton new geometry drones that'll protect Uganda and improve their agriculture, which don't exist and never will exist. The fucking hydrogen proton geometry drones. So he's scamming in that regard. But other than that, he's just being a fucking moron on the biggest stage ever. And that's about it.
I feel what he's saying.
He's a membership Harrison.
Like, stop trying to uncover shit. Just all these little micro fucking bullshits.
What do you mean?
Like I said, I'm a fucking idiot. I'm trying to regurgitate what I heard. Like, as far as all the elements in between.
Yeah.
Like, why are they there? When they're just.
You and
You know
I
what
will
I'm talking-
never explain this in a way that's not hugely frustrating to anybody who really
I can't
knows
even
it.
remember.
It's not even frustrating. It's just kind of sad. It's just, like, actually kind of sad. Like, it's hard to even be frustrated. It's just sad. Like, it's just legitimately sad. Listening to this guy fucking fumble through like he had peanut butter in his mouth about the elements in between and the micros, and then openly admit like he's just trying to regurgitate something that he heard. It's just sad. It's not even frustrating. I don't know, man. I guess one thing I don't understand. So both of them are very open about being stupid. So Action Bronson's like, I'm an idiot, so I'm just trying to repeat what I heard once. Why wouldn't you just repeat the thing that you've heard that actually has results? So the math that you've heard, 1 × 1 = 1. Why wouldn't that be what you repeat when you are literally the product of that math? You would have died way before you hit this age if math was never to this level. You would have died of some kind of infection. You would have died trying to like finger your butt in the wrong part of the jungle and got eaten alive. You wouldn't have made it without math. So why wouldn't you be regurgitating that math that is keeping you alive and allowing you to have a career? I don't get it. I don't know why they would gravitate towards actually this math that has nothing to show for it, not a single invention, not a single basis in reality, not a single physical thing to show for it. That's the one I'm going to repeat. I just don't get it. I don't know how you gravitate to that. The least obvious psyop. Do you think? I don't know. I don't know if it's a psyop or not. It's like, I know that word gets tossed around like so many other buzzwords, but there is a chance. Like, I do think in this case there is a chance to keep people stupid, because it is legitimately just easier to control stupid people, 100%. So if you just have people like Action Bronson, Joe Rogan, Terrence Howard being like 1 × 1 = 2, don't trust math, and here's the hydrogen proton geometry, also zero's not real. Like, if you have people start believing in that, they become so much easier to control. So it could be a psyop, but I also think it's just equally likely that these dumb fucking people just really love the idea of feeling special and smart, so they just latch onto it.
I don't even remember what I'm trying to say, but you know.
Yeah. The way he was explaining how everything's connected.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the entire, the whole scale of it. And the way he was showing it like a geometric pattern. And when you look at it like the way he was describing it, you're like, oh, wow, that kind of makes more sense. It does make sense. That's it. I mean, it just looks beautiful. Oh, Jim, dope art. I need to know if this...
Okay, here. Then I know what we need to do. I figured it out. I see. How about we start making math and science super fucking hype? So instead of this lame-ass picture here, put it on a pair of titties. I guarantee Joe Rogan and Action Bronson's fucking eyes would pop out of their skull like a Tom and Jerry cartoon going awooga if they saw real math and science, but it was on, like, boobies. Maybe that's all we need. The math gave me a boner, so it must be true. I think we're onto something. I actually think we're onto something. I think that could be the key. That's what we've been missing this whole time.
It's like a very specific thing they did to them.
Yeah, but...
And it revealed the yin-yang?
That's what it looks
it's
like.
quantum intent.
Action Bronson, what does the yin-yang mean to you? What do you think that it revealed the yin-yang? What do you think those words mean? There's no worse feeling than when you engage in an internet argument with some anonymous asshole, and then it turns out that that asshole is extremely talented. Today I have a very sad story to share with you where the villain gets the last laugh. Real life isn't like anime, where the good guys always win. Sometimes the bully comes and puts your head in the toilet and flushes. So it all starts with this video. A YouTuber posts their best performance of an impossible piece of music called Rush E. Now, obviously, I'm a fucking Neanderthal when it comes to piano. I don't know anything about any major pieces except from, like, your big ones like Mozart and Bach. So I had never heard of Rush E before, so I did a little research. Rush E was actually a song created as a meme that is quite literally impossible for any human being to play. And I don't mean that as like it's extremely difficult, I mean it is genuinely impossible. You would need 15 fucking arms, and even then you would struggle. Let me go ahead and show you where it started, the genesis of Rush E. If any human being actually performed this song as written here, it would probably end the world on the spot, or bring about the heat death of the entire universe. It would signal Armageddon. It is quite literally an impossible piece of music that was made to be a joke. However, some piano players on YouTube tried their best to kind of change it around a little bit, mess with the arrangement in order to make it almost possible to play on the piano, which is the video I just showed you there, which is giving a very spirited attempt at making it happen. And I thought it was very good. Of course, I'm not a piano expert by any means, but most people that watched it also agreed that it was extremely impressive what he was able to do. And this spawned an argument in the YouTube comments. YouTube comments are the cesspool of the internet. It is absolutely fucking deplorable down there very often. But in this comment section, it was overwhelmingly positive. But just like everywhere on the internet, there has to be that douchebag that comes in and shits on everyone's fun, just ruins the entire positive atmosphere of everything. They drop their pants and goatsy themselves and just makes everyone feel worse. Their presence making everything more negative. Keep in mind, this piece is literally impossible to play. You saw it. It looked like a Toho bullet hell game. But that didn't stop some enlightened Redditor from demanding perfection. It actually comes from this comment, which is a very nice comment from a guy named Just a Guy Who Likes Hentai. He says, "How can you dislike this? I don't see anyone else actually playing this." You know, that's just a very wholesome thing. Like, this is so good, I can't imagine someone not liking it. It's just being nice, Obviously, there's going to be people that don't like it, but it's just a very encouraging comment. But it summoned a demon. A piano-playing demon named Fanshin. Fanshin replies to that comment saying, "Probably because it was mediocre, no offense." Yeah, no offense, buddy, but you just fucking suck and you should be embarrassed that you posted this video. It actually made me physically ill. I puked and was so offended by your awful mediocre playing that I broke up with my own girlfriend in protest. This isn't constructive criticism. I saw a lot of people defending this saying he was just offering criticism or answering the question. No, he's just being an asshole. There's nothing constructive about this. You just saying that it's not good without saying like where they could improve isn't really constructive criticism. It's just you being a douchebag. And obviously he wasn't genuinely answering the question in the comment of how can anyone dislike this, because it wasn't a real question. It was just an encouraging statement. It's like when you get told a story like, "Can you believe my parents got divorced?" And then your friend responds with, "Yeah, I can, because your parents are fucking selfish sluts." It's like, well, I wasn't actually asking you if you can believe it, It's not like a real question. It was just a supportive comment. So there's really no justifying being a douchebag here other than just being a dick. So then the guy responds saying, "Was it? I'd like to see you try. So come on, give us an awe-inspiring performance." Spoiler alert, he would soon regret issuing this challenge. Fanshin responds, "Oh boy, you will embarrass yourself. I'll show you what a good performance of this piece sounds like." To which the hentai fan says, "Then do it, stop talking, and do it." Now, 10 times out of 10 on the internet, when some anonymous asshole makes statements like this, you don't expect them to follow through on it. And even less often, you will expect them to be good at anything. But this is the exception. This is the anomaly. This is probably the first time in history someone has actually followed through on a statement like this and actually been good at it. Fanshin responds saying, "Maybe you can pay me, then I'll be motivated, LMFAO. He's pretty arrogant and pompous," to which Hentai responds, "So being known as a jealous, contrarian liar until you post your own rendition isn't a good enough motivation for you? Sorry, but that's all you're gonna get." And then Fanshin again, he's twirling that cartoonishly evil mustache and says, "Haha, sure, why not? Fun summer project. Maybe I'll get more views." And then other people kind of come in here and tell him to shut up. They don't really like his negative attitude. The comment section starts to gain a little bit of infamy, so more people come in with the popcorn to watch from the sidelines. You can see the war has erupted. Now we're watching the commenters fight. Another challenge was issued saying upload something by Scott, that guy, other than MLR or Entertainer. Again, I'm not familiar with piano pieces, so I don't even know what that challenge is. I'm assuming it's difficult. And then eventually Fanshin comes back and says, "Wouldn't have the confidence to upload a performance that I'm not pleased with, but yes, props to the guy for attempting it. It's just this could have been played with much more accuracy had he spent more time polishing, which is something I will show. It's pretty much learned a tempo, but I'm striving for consistency and clarity." So he finally gives like almost a constructive criticism there. And then he gives his rendition of this piece. And unfortunately, it fucking slaps. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the hentai guy deleted his channel after that. I mean, it's unlucky that the guy that he was arguing with was the only person on the internet who happens to talk shit anonymously and be able to back it up with real talent. You really hate to see that. You hate to see an anonymous internet asshole turn out to be really good at something. That's a horrible feeling. I know when he watched this video, like when he dropped the video, he was probably still so confident, like, yeah, this is gonna fucking blow. And then he started listening, and as his erection grew, he felt more and more shame. Hentai guy was just sitting there stewing in anger, like, fuck, he's actually good. Damn you, curses! Because, I mean, that's how I felt, and I wasn't even involved in the argument. But I think this also illustrates an extremely important point. No matter how talented you are, it can be overshadowed by a shitty attitude. A lot of the comments here, and even in the Reddit thread, were just kind of saying the same meme of pretty mediocre, no offense. Like, not even respecting his very clear talent because they don't like him. If you're insufferable and unlikable, people aren't going to respect your skill. And I think that's... Now, granted, it's not everyone because the video is still overwhelmingly liked, but it could have been a truly positive experience had he just gone about it in a much better way. Like, you know, this wasn't the best rendition of the song, but I do appreciate the effort that went into it, and in fact, it inspired me to want to learn it myself. And then he drops this video, and then, you know, that's a lot better, I think, and you'd have more people on your side as opposed to just people brushing off your extreme level of talent here because you were an asshole in the comments to someone that was just proud of their own rendition of the piece. Like, his arrangement of this is like a custom arrangement, obviously, because you can't play it as written. His arrangement is extremely solid, and his performance is unreal. Like, absolutely unreal. And to have that just thrown to the side because he was super unlikable is a real shame, I think. So, I mean, this was a pretty wild experience because I've never seen this before. Like I said, 10 times out of 10, when you're arguing with someone on the internet anonymously, that person behind the keyboard's usually a coward that doesn't really have a lot going for them. But in this really rare instance, that anonymous guy was a fucking piano prodigy. So yeah, I just wanted to share this with you all. That's about it. See ya. I've stayed silent on this topic for too long because I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but you know what? Maybe a little tough love is what you need. Maybe a nice firm spank on the bottom is exactly what you're missing right now, and you know what? I'm here to give you that fiery kick in the keister. I'm sure you've all heard of the Mandela effect. It's very well known now. The Mandela effect, for those that aren't aware, is the phenomenon where a large group of people all share the same false memory. The biggest example of this is actually where the name comes from, Nelson Mandela. Well, I mean, Nelson Mandela is real. It's not like the false memory was his existence. Nelson Mandela was very real, but it's named after the time where a large group of people thought that Nelson Mandela died in prison, when in reality he didn't. But there was such a massive number of people who all swore that they remembered hearing or reading that Nelson Mandela died while in prison. But that just didn't happen. So the Mandela effect refers to this phenomenon where a large number of people all collectively share the same false memory. It's just super fascinating, and over the last like 8 or 9 years, it's becoming more and more common and more talked about. Like, here's an example of one I just saw on Twitter the other day. Cheez-Its, and I'm still saying it wrong. Cheez-Its never existed. They have always been Cheez-It, not plural. I always remember the box being Cheez-Its with the Z at the end. In school, we always referred to them as Cheez-Its, like, oh, what are you snacking on? I'm just having some Cheez-Its. Jonathan just choked on a whole bunch of Cheez-Its and ended up in the hospital sending prayers to his family. You know, like, we always referred to them as Cheez-Its, so it's deeply ingrained in me that when I talk about them, I use the plural. But they've never been Cheez-Its. It's always been Cheez-It. But this isn't one that I'm super passionate about. This one's entirely possible that I was just a dumb, stupid, milk-drinking, glue-sniffing kid and just got it wrong and never bothered to correct it. But there is one that I am extremely passionate about, and that's the Berenstain Bears. I made a whole video on this like 5 or 6 years ago now, I don't even remember, going into this giant rabbit hole of Berenstain Bears. But that never existed, apparently. It's always been Berenstain, which I still, to this day, refuse to believe. There is some tomfoolery in the quantum realm going on right now, because I very, very distinctly remember writing book reports on the Berenstain Bears, and I was corrected when I used stain, because as a kid, the word stain was a word I knew. You know, I'd fucking shit stain my britches. My parents would talk about stains. I knew the word stain. So Berenstain Bears is what made more sense to me at the time as opposed to Steen. So on my reports, I remember I wrote stain and was corrected to writing Steen. I know it was Steen. I still very much believe that, but it's apparently always been Stain. Another example of the Mandela effect. But why am I talking about this today? It's not mainly to focus on all the big ones like Berenstein versus Berenstain and all that shit. It's because there's actually some Mandela effects revolving around me on the internet that I just want to clear up. And this might be mind-blowing to some people, but it's time I finally wake you up and break you out of the simulation so that way you can actually begin to live in reality, knowing full well that it's the truth. There are so many people that firmly believe, would swear on a stack of Bibles, that I made a video on the ShamWow. They believed that I made the real ShamWow video, an infomercial dub for the ShamWow. This is a belief that people have held for years now. And I'm telling you, I never did. I promise you, I never did. But I still, daily on Twitch, will see a few messages or even have someone subscribe, resub on Twitch with a message saying, I've been following you ever since you made that video on the ShamWow a decade ago. I've been following you for decades since you uploaded the ShamWow infomercial dub, something like that. And I do appreciate it. I sincerely tip my fedora to you, Quantum Time Traveler. But in this universe, I never made that video on the ShamWow that you swear you saw. In this godforsaken realm of the multiverse, it wasn't me who did that. But this is something that so many people swear by. And it got to a point, like between emails and Twitch chat, I had to check myself. I had to double check here just to make sure that I wasn't the one hitting the crack pipe. But I have reconfirmed yet again, I never made a ShamWow video. I never did a dub for the ShamWow or anything like that. What I think is happening here is people remember 13, 14 years ago, Djibouti Dubs posted a ShamWow dub, and it was really popular. In fact, Djibouti Dubs is what inspired me to do commercial dubs of my own, and the ShamWow is one of his most iconic. So I think what happened is people remember that ShamWow dub, and they remembered that I also used to do commercial dubs during that time. So they just started crossing wires. They started mixing the proton beams together, and they got their memories all fucked up and, all cattywampus. But I also did do a video kind of similar to the ShamWow, which was the Real Mighty Thirsty video, which is an infomercial dub for a product that's similar to the ShamWow. So it's also possible that they're just mixing the name up. But when I point that out on stream occasionally, people will get combative. Not mean or anything, but no, I really remember you saying these things about the ShamWow. And they'll list off a joke or two that I've never told ever, and that isn't in the Mighty Thirsty video or in Djibouti Dubs video. So I don't know what to tell you. This is just a great example of memories not being the most reliable when it comes to accuracy and the truth. Over time, things just start getting all fuzzy and blurred, and then you end up with false memories, which is what the Mandela effect is all about, the unreliability of memories. Unless we're talking about Berenstein versus Berenstain Bears, then we all know the truth is that it was Berenstein. Berenstain is a no-good, dastardly fraud, and I will stand by that till the end of time. Doctor Strange could peek into 1 billion universes and never find one where it's actually Berenstain. There is something wrong, and I truly believe it has always been Steen. But I digress. Anyway, back on topic. There's another big false memory that people have about me and my channel that I'd like to clear up as well. So, there's a large number of people that believe that my channel used to be named Critical, and somewhere along the way I changed it to Penguin0. For at least the last 3 years, I've gotten emails, and especially in Twitch chat, many messages asking why I changed the name of my YouTube channel. And I've never understood it because I've been very vocal about never changing my name across the last decade. I made this channel in 2007. I was 13. It was a name that I just came up with because I liked penguins. And penguins spelled properly was taken. Penguins with a Z was taken. So penguins with a Z and a 0 was available, so I took it. There wasn't a whole lot of thought that went into it. It was just the brain of a toddler. And I liked penguins. I still like penguins. I think they're unbelievably cute. And that's all. And I never changed it. I never touched it. I also do have an explanation here for what could have happened. when I started doing commentary, which wasn't until like 2010, I always said, "What's up, everybody? It's critical." So the more times I repeated that over the course of like 8 years, the more people associated that name with the channel to the point where they probably stopped looking at the channel name and just assumed the channel name was critical. But in reality, it never was. It has always been Penguin0. It's never ever been changed. However, I will say I did recently change the name of my second channel. I took it from Huge Charles to Moist Charlie Clips. This I have an explanation for. I changed it from Huge Charles because most people thought it wasn't an official account, so I had a lot of people spamming to stop uploading Charlie's content, even though it is officially my account. So in order to just make things more clear, I changed it to a name that people will obviously understand more as like an official channel. So yeah, that is now Moist Charlie Clips, and it has been for like a month or two now. Definitely go subscribe if you want to see more content over there. I really do genuinely find everything about the Mandela effect to be fascinating, just super interesting to think about, because there's no reason why so many people would collectively share the same memory that's wrong. Like, there are just so many people that swear by things that are just not correct. Like, for example, me and Cheez-Its and Berenstein Bears, which are apparently not accurate, but I vividly remember seeing them that way and reading them and writing them that way. And so many others like me have those same memories, but we're all wrong, apparently. So it just seems so weird that a lot of unrelated people from all different parts of the world can share the exact same memory that happens to be false. I don't know, I just find that to be super odd. And when it comes to my channel and the Mandela effects surrounding some of my content, it's super weird because now I'm on the other side of it. So again, to tie it back to Berenstain, as everything always does end up back at that argument, that whole debacle, the people behind the Berenstain Bears franchise, the whole property, they can't understand why anyone would have ever thought it was Steen, since there's never been any confusion around it. It has always been Stain. All of their marketing has been Stain. Everything has always been Stain. So they don't really get why anyone would have gotten it wrong, especially all of the people that have, like me. And now that I'm in this position, I can't understand how anyone ever thought I did a ShamWow video or how anyone ever thought I had changed my YouTube channel name. I don't know how those things started or where those memories came from because, from my perspective, none of that was even close to being true. I never even considered making a ShamWow video, and I'd never even remotely considered changing my YouTube name. Yet so many people really think I did both, or one or the other, I suppose. And I don't know, I can't wrap my head around where it comes from or how that shit starts, but it's just super interesting to me. And I'm sure the Mandela effect is something that all of you have experienced to some degree, or at least understand to some level. And I just thought it'd be something interesting to talk about today because it applies to my channel as well. So yeah, hopefully this cleared up some confusion or, blew your mind or something in some way. That's about it. See ya.